name is Kedar Ahmed. I'm with rptv. The Toronto Community Benefits Network held a media conference on Tuesday, March the 14th at Toronto City Hall to celebrate developers' withdrawal of appeal against City of Toronto Affordable Housing Bylaw. The appeal was officially dropped on February the 10th, 2023. A growing number of community organizations across Toronto have successfully worked together to defend the bylaw and have publicly stated their support for the bylaw. These groups include Friends of Kensington Market, Lakeshore Affordable Housing Advocacy Action Group, A Better Bloor Dufferin, Regent Park Neighbourhood Association, Parkdale People's Economy, Toronto Community Network Benefit, the West End Coalition and Housing Justice, Coalition and ACORN. In September of 2022, a group of developers from across Toronto filed overlapping separate appeals to block implementation of the City of Toronto's new affordable housing bylaw that established a more reasonable definition of affordability. Those developers have now all withdrawn their challenge. The appeal filed by developers include Minto, Dunbar, Greenwind, Carlisle, Metcalf, Pemberton Group, and their subsidiary companies would have required tenants living in affordable housing to pay thousands of dollars more in rent each year and still entitled the developers to incentivize and cost reductions. However, the Ontario Land Tribunal OLT ordered on February 10th that the citywide bylaw be in full force and effect, with the exception of a handful of outstanding local appeals on individual sites. Tenants and advocates continue to hope that the definition of affordable that survived this OLT appeal will not be reversed by Premier Ford in the implementation of Bill 23, which includes ambiguous language that could strike down the policies protecting affordability despite the win at the tribunal. The City of Toronto revised its affordable housing bylaw in 2021 to ensure all development that receives municipal incentives and credits for being affordable housing are actually affordable to the average Torontonian, by using income to define affordability rather than market rents. The new bylaw sets rents for an affordable bachelor unit, for example, at $812 a month, which the average single person in Toronto can afford. Similarly, the new bylaw would set rent for an affordable one-bedroom at $1,090. These developers want the affordable rate reverted back to be based on the median rent charged by the landlords, which has consistently been 50% above the rent affordable to the average income of a single person. And now let's go to the press conference.
Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's media conference as it relates to community groups who are celebrating the City of Toronto's affordable housing bylaw appeal, which was recently withdrawn. And so with us, we have community groups, many who are involved with the Coalition for Equitable and Inclusive Development, who will be speaking more to this significant victory, but also the importance of policies that align with, that support more affordable housing, but also affordable housing that's truly affordable for people that are living in Toronto. And so without further ado, I will introduce today's first speaker, Wali Kogali. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumsa. So I just want to say this is a big, big day for the City of Toronto. Today, the residents of Toronto, working with staff at the City of Toronto who've been actually fighting this horrible, horrible appeal against the bylaw that is one of the best, one of the solutions when it comes to addressing the affordable housing crisis. And I want to quickly congratulate the residents who basically spoke up when it came to this appeal, for those folks who came out to the meetings of the Ontario Land Tribunal, and for the many groups that chose to be participants to this appeal to make sure that it's challenged so that we are able to implement affordable housing bylaws that the City of Toronto wants. The other thing that I just want to quickly communicate is that this proves that when residents and community groups come together, we're able to stand up against special interests, developers that just wanted to profit from the housing crisis. And this also proves that the announcement that was made earlier, an ambitious goal by the deputy mayor of 285,000 units to be built in the city of Toronto over the next 10 years, is not possible without making sure that the policies that are in place are policies that promote affordable housing. So I want to invite one of the advocates of affordable housing when it comes to tenant rights, when it comes to affordable rental opportunities, my good friend from ACORN, Alejandra, who's going to speak to why this victory was so important to all of us. Welcome, Alejandra.
So, and my name is Alejandra Ruiz Vargas, and I'm here and representing ACORN. ACORN is an organization that fights for social change. We are a union of tenants, and we have been fighting for affordable housing since 2004. And today, coming here from the east, I saw 6 people that are homeless in the transit system. And so today we want to acknowledge that there are about 7,500 people in the shelter system. There are about 80,000 people waiting on the housing list for Toronto community housing. We want to acknowledge as well that a bachelor unit in Cabbage Town, not far from here, from City Hall, costs $1,975, and at the Bay Corridor costs $2,206 bachelor unit. We want to acknowledge as well there are thousands of people in the city that are in the verge of arrears, to having arrears. We want to acknowledge as well that the shelter system, we had students that are not able to pay their rent, that there are single parents that are not able to pay their rent, that there are families that are not able to pay their rent. There are many people that are in the shelter are in Ontario Disability Support Program, and there are in Ontario Works. And there are people that are in the shelter system that is working, but it has no money still to pay the rent. So despite this situation that is very known now for probably the whole city, there are people that fall against our beautiful definition of affordable housing. The definition that we want is 30% of our income should be paying for being going and towards rent. So we want inclusionary zoning, and we want this definition that really reflects the needs of low income and moderate income. So 30% of our income is going to be towards rent. So this is a big step forward. And I want to say that this is like a bucket of fresh air. I don't know if you feel it, but enjoy it. Enjoy it, because this is a beginning, a good beginning to a path for recovery in this messy crisis that we have right now. So before, people were, the term affordable housing was very loosey-goosey. Because it was affordable for who. But today we can say that 30% of our income is going to go only for a rent. So this should be for celebration. We should be here putting a flag here, even though it's invisible, but a flag of triumph, a flag where it reflects that finally justice shines. So we really fought hard for this, and now cheers to everybody. But this is the first step here in Toronto, and we want that other municipalities have the same privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you so much for those amazing comments. Next, we're going to invite Serena Purdy from the Friends of Kensington Market to speak to why this is so important.
Thank you. Waleed, Serena Purdy with Friends of Kensington Market, a community-rooted organization that has fought for a long time for our diverse neighborhoods in Toronto. Our neighborhoods work best when we have a healthy mix of incomes and when essential workers and seniors can afford to live and stay here. This new definition, adopted by the City of Toronto through Official Plan Amendment 558, is part of a long-standing effort to ensure that you can afford to live here. It represents a shift from tying affordability to average market rate to an income-based model. That means that it will be based on what you can actually afford. This definition results from democratic processes designed to protect everyone's interests and needs, not just developers amassing profits during a housing crisis. This is about the city holding developers accountable so that they don't continue to cash in on incentives to provide affordable housing and then not pass that on in the form of affordable housing itself. And this is one win in a much bigger battle. This city is still in crisis. We don't know what will happen when the province's Bill 23 is implemented, as it ties affordability to market rate instead of income. So we don't know whether the province's definition will overrule the city's. The great progress that we've made, we would see that as a catastrophic step backward for the City of Toronto. This definition is also dependent on the designation of Protected Major Transit Station Areas, or PMTSAs. Doug Ford continues to drag his feet as the city struggles. He has had over 6 months to do so, and that's 6 months of building affordable units that we will never see again in the city. Every affordable unit that we can build with the passage of OPA 558 is worth this fight. We applaud the City of Toronto and our partners in community with the Coalition for Equitable Inclusive Development, and we will continue to fight for the affordability that Torontonians so desperately need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Serena, for articulating that important victory and what it means. I just want to remind folks that there's also developments that are happening across the Ontario line, right? There's going to be this idea of transit-oriented communities. So that's going to, Doug Ford's current government has opened the door for not just development in the Greenbelt, but also development across the Ontario line. So I want to invite our next speaker, and our next speaker is one of the co-chairs of the BOLD Coalition, which is Build the Ontario Line Differently. So please help me in welcoming Liz Driver. Liz, come on in.
Thank you, Waleed. Liz Driver, co-chair of the BOLD Community Coalition. So we believe it is possible to build the Ontario line differently. And as Waleed said, there will be transit-friendly communities all along this line. And affordable housing is a very important component of that. So the BOLD Community Coalition supports the definition of affordable housing now set by the Ontario Land Tribunal. BOLD believes the ruling sends a strong message to Metrolinx to not only deliver better transit to the city, but to do so in a way that also delivers affordable housing for the people of Toronto. Under its federal funding agreement, Metrolinx already has an obligation, as they build the Ontario line, to include affordable housing in its project scope. BOLD believes the new definition provides not only greater clarity as to what constitutes affordability, but City Hall now has a metric to assess whether the provincial transit agency is meeting its requirements. To date, the BOLD Community Coalition has yet to see any progress on affordable housing from Metrolinx. With today's decision, we now expect the provincial transit agency to comply with the Ontario Land Tribunal and deliver designs and plans to show exactly how badly needed affordable housing targets will be met as part of its work building transit-oriented communities around each station on the line. Thank you.
Excellent. So I just want to say we're here to actually celebrate this big victory, right? In the fall, last year, we had developers attempt to hold an important implementation of a policy that we as a city adopted. We've won that fight thanks to the advocacy of many groups, many members of our coalition. And now we want to take on the next important challenges that exist, challenges that relate to residents being left out of the planning and co-development of the communities. We want to make sure that our communities are not steamrolled, irresponsible development happens in our communities. And we also want to hold our government accountable. We now have nothing in the way of delivering on affordable housing. And we need those commitments from our next mayor. We have a mayoral by-election on June, so I want to remind everyone who's watching, ask the tough questions of our mayoral candidates on whether they're committed to not just making sure that housing is affordable, but making the necessary investments so that more people access a pathway to home ownership, are able to live in their communities and not feel that they're at risk of being uprooted or moved out of their communities. So we're going to now take some questions from the media, from our friends at the media gallery, the press. So please do ask your questions, and we'll love to answer them.
You're saying that this fight over the definition of affordable housing is you've declared victory on that for the moment.
Yeah.
But what about going forward? The deputy mayor was advancing the city's housing plans this morning at a press conference, saying that the city has ambitious targets that they hope to meet over the next 10 years. Are you concerned about how, no matter how many housing units actually get built, that they won't be affordable, and what do you think the city should be doing around that?
That's excellent. Well, the city now has all the tools it needs in their box. There's no outstanding appeal to implement a policy that's going to help us define what affordable housing. But what we need from our cities, especially our next mayor, is leadership in making sure that our next budget commits to more affordable housing, but also exploring partnerships with other levels of government. What's really frustrating the residents of Toronto is how the different levels of government are not really working closely together with the community. We need to all be at the table when we're discussing our national housing strategy and how to make sure that big cities like Toronto are able to leverage the investments, the capital that are needed to build affordable housing, but also programs that promote a pathway to home ownership for many residents of the city. I recall our prime minister, campaigning on rent to own, for example, where those rent to own dollars in our communities, right? We need to see a translation from rhetoric to action. So I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
If I could ask, the deputy mayor was also talking today about how she believes that the next mayor will agree that housing is a priority. It seems that there is, at all levels of government, a recognition that there's a crisis right now. Are you all concerned that any of the progress that has been made to date in Toronto could be torn up by whoever is elected mayor if we have someone who doesn't share the idea that housing is a priority?
Yeah, that's actually an excellent question, Ben. I think we have a lot of work ahead of us. There is tremendous efforts within our communities to make sure that whoever is elected as our next mayor understands that housing is a basic human right and should follow through with the expertise and the evidence that actually speaks to, if you house residents of Toronto, you're dealing with a lot of social determinants that impact their health in the long term, right? We're in the midst, we just went through a global pandemic. We have a lot of mental health needs. We need new supportive housing. We need modular housing. We need all forms of housing to better support the residents of Toronto. And we need a caring mayor. We need a mayor that understands that we can't all succeed if so many of us are left behind. And look at how many people cannot access affordable homeownership. In fact, let's look at the rental rates and the rental market and how that's become such a speculative market with rents just getting out of control. And what is our premier doing about that? What is our provincial government doing about that? Rent controls, there are evidence-based solutions that we could put in place to stop this cycle, never-ending cycle of making folks feel like they're not heard, they're not seen. And we need to act on the fact that we have many folks in our encampments, in our shelter system. We just heard from my friend Alejandra about how many people are homeless across the city of Toronto, and those numbers just keep going up. We need a caring mayor that is going to be dedicated to solving the housing crisis by working with the community, not working with just developers and putting forward solutions that are not based on what the community's needs are. Yeah,
Sorry,
go
can I
ahead.
just continue on the same
Yeah, go
question
ahead, go
before we move on? Just from having done this for a while, I don't think there's disagreement about whether or not housing is a priority. I think it's a disagreement about the mechanisms that will get us there. And too often, what we're seeing is leadership choose options that cut red tape, by which they mean destroying democratic institutions that we rely on in order to make way for developers to build as much as they want wherever they want. And that's not ever going to be the solution. We need leaders at all levels of government that will do what's needed to face this crisis. And that will mean facing up to developers. That will mean ending financialization. That will mean building compassionate systems. And we really need to pay attention to the way that mayoral candidates speak about this issue.
Just back to the plan that was the housing plan that was talked about this morning. Do you think that there is a space for council to sort of proceed with the one that was, created by John Tory, even though the fact that we don't have a mayor and there is going to be obviously a by-election that could potentially change course on all of that?
This is an excellent question. With new city leadership, there will be a new set of priorities, and that's something that we expect. But what we're hoping is active members of our community, members of our coalitions, residents that are really invested in solutions, is we want to make sure our next mayor is a champion for housing, and actually works with our communities to make sure that the financial incentivization of housing ends. When are we going to learn, my friends? Look at our housing market. We have seen a depreciation of almost 25% over the past 12 months, right? This is because of speculation and people thinking that the way you invest is necessarily in building housing. What we need to remember is that the real investment should come from our government in our people by providing housing, making it accessible, right? And I think it's also an opportunity for us to think about the solutions that community members have been calling for, whether it's new supportive housing, modular housing, but also dedicated programs. I'm not gonna stop talking about this. Rent to own, a pathway to home ownership. Those are critical interventions to make sure that residents are not uprooted from their communities. And you see that across the city of Toronto. It's becoming less accessible to access housing, and this needs to end. This era needs to end with a new mayor that is committed to making sure that those targets are met and, if better yet, exceeded across the city of Toronto. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Okay, my friends, any other questions? Guess we're done. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you so much for covering this important story. And let's celebrate this big victory. Thank you.
Yes. Woo!
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please follow our social media platforms. And for more information, please visit our website.